Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being with us for another amazing topic of conversation. Today, first of all, I want to thank my sponsors, the Health Channel by South Florida PBS, and Thermo Fisher with their program ready to go. And it is an honor for me to introduce Claudia Romo Edelman. She has been named a Latina disruptor by Hola Magazine. So, Claudia, thank you so much for being with us.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. I actually never heard that before, so thanks for letting me know. I didn't know, but yeah, pretty much. I do feel a disruptor, so I take it with pleasure. Thank you.
I guess that is something that we have in common
Yes,
because
indeed.
I consider myself a disruptive thinker.
Right. And I invite, let's actually invite every one of your audience to think that we can disrupt the system, so that we, the Latino community, particularly Latinas, can get to the place where we deserve full attention, fully pay, full respect. So let's disrupt the system until we get there. And let's do it a la Latina, which is with a lot of love, smiles, and music and dance, and just like passion for progress.
And a lot of hugs.
Uh,
So tell me a little bit about your background. You're the founder of We Are All Human.
right.
Tell me a little bit.
Well, I am Mexican. I am a Mexican Swiss. Lived most of my professional life in Europe, working for global organizations. I'm a global mobilization expert, and have done a lot of global frameworks and campaigns to actually win the hearts and minds of people to generate systemic change. And I had the privilege to be working for UNICEF, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the UN Refugee Agency, the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. And I moved to the States 7 years ago, and that was the first time in my life that I heard that I was a Hispanic. I lived my entire life as a happy Mexican. I never heard that term before, and I was absolutely intrigued and very surprised, actually happily surprised, because I thought that finally I was no longer going to be a minority, that I could join the majority, because I started looking at the numbers. But the reality, Gladys, is that it didn't feel that way. As a fact, when I moved to States, it felt even more minority than when I was really the only one Latino American in the countries where I was living, or in like in the settings I was operating with, and it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense at all. So when 4 years ago, I got married to an American, and I was like, okay, that's it. I'm fried. Now I'm staying here. I'm no longer going to be a diplomat, like moving around the world. And I realized that for my decision of actually getting married, my decision was going to determine that my daughter was going to make less than half of the salary that she could be doing otherwise, because Latinas were the least paid group in the country. So it didn't feel fair to me that my choice would actually affect my daughter. And that's actually the destiny for 62 million Latinos today that have not been privileged enough to be seen, heard, and valued the way we should. That's why I created World Human 4.5 years ago, so that like I could move into diversity and inclusion the way that the data was very clear that that's the flag that is gonna be here to stay, and that people are people are going to start looking at action and demanding and making choices on whether who they work for, or where they buy for, or who they vote for, depending on whether they feel that like they can be themselves, and demand a degree of respect and tolerance that we're not seeing today.
The sad part is that it's not only inequality in the pay force, being a woman, but also being Hispanic, it's even further down.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, like, if you're a Latina, you're the minority within the minority. There's we're 9% of the population, just like Latinos. And I, Gladys, if you don't mind, just want to start with leveling up everyone about like the data, because that's what I love the most, particularly because it's so positive for us. But Latinos were 62 million people, 19% of the population, according to the latest census. 50% of those are Latinas. So our average age is the lowest of all. So we're the youngest population of the country, 28 years old average. That's a decade younger than the population. Latinas, 26 years old average. I always joke about that. We look young because we're young, but we're really young. And the most important data point I think that people don't realize is the mode, meaning the most common. The most common age of 62 million Latinos today is 11 years old. The most common age of non-Latinos is 58 years old. So that's very clear about who is the future consumer, who's the future taxpayer, who's the future employee, who's the future, like voter, politician, so citizen of the country. So we really need to make sure that we understand how powerful we are demographically, just like at the demographic level, we're the people, we're the youth, economically. We generate $2.7 trillion in economic value. If we would be a standalone economy, we would be the 8th largest country in the world. And we're the third fastest economy in the world. So if you're, I don't know, after China and India, Latinos are the fastest growing economy. So even if you're a Japanese company, you're looking at your global growth strategy, Latinos are the most important group in the country. And that doesn't make sense with the reality of our group. So we're 19% of the population, but only 1% in politics, 19%, but only 1% in corporate boards, only 1% of venture capital funds that are investing in us, 3% of all the grants that we're giving, and we're the absolute least paid group when it comes to our Latina population. So within all the gap that we have as Hispanics, which makes no sense because we're the driving force for America's growth. Hispanic progress is American progress. And not only that makes no sense, but the reality of Latinas is actually harder, deeper. We have the least of the opportunities, the least of the pay, but also the worst of the reputation. Latinas, we just did a perception study, and we're seen as our physical attributes. So if you think of Latinas, we're seen as sexy, beautiful, loud, but not as leaders or hard workers or everything else. So we put down the perception of our community because we're seen that way. We're positioned actually as receptionist if you want to go into a job, as opposed to a potential leader, and that really affects our self-confidence moving forward.
And not only us, but the future, like your daughter.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
action.
We have absolutely a lack of role models when it comes to Latina, so that my daughter could see a Gladys, I would love to see more of you in the posters when my daughter walks to school, or more people like you in the magazines and in the, in the history books, like seeing ourselves, because if we don't see it, we can't be it. And for my daughter, there's an empty space out there where she cannot recognize herself in any of the leaders that are out there, let alone women.
No, I agree with you. And this is why we're all working together to make a difference and
That's right.
taking action. So tell me, what's the Hispanic start?
Well, that's actually the word that you just said is like together taking action. So that's what brought me to create or to start looking at what solutions could be, because what the reality is, it makes no sense. We're powerful, but we're seen as weak. We're big, but even ourselves, we think small. And our perception doesn't match our reality. And so digging into it, like, what are the barriers? Why on earth are we not accessing our full potential? Why are we not, getting into the full recognition of our contributions to the country? There are a couple of insights that guide us to create Hispanic Star, which is that we're fragmented and we're blind to our own contributions. So Mexicans don't talk to Colombians, don't talk to Venezuelans. The higher class doesn't talk to the middle class. We don't act as a community. We don't have a shared agenda. We don't support, we don't have a sense of community. And there's a lot of elbowing out. Of having a scarcity mentality of like, once you make it, you close the door and you forget about that you were even Latino. And so,
I'm sorry to interrupt you in a little bit, but except one Latin community, which they really come together, and that is the Cuban community in the United States.
No, I have no, I'm not talking about different groups. I'm just talking as a whole, those
As a
60
whole,
million
but they
people.
totally integrated, while, as you said, we rub elbows and we fight with the Venezuelans, we fight with the Brazilians,
It makes
while
no
the
sense,
other
Gladys.
ones made a whole life for themselves and included everyone.
And
And
not only
that's
that, you see,
why,
like people that really have historical differences, like the Chinese, the Japanese, having, like they come together as the Asia Society when it comes to
correct,
actually going for scholarships,
there we
right? No
go.
question.
Yeah.
Forget about the differences. So that's what we're proposing. That's why Hispanic Star was created as a way to create a framework of action, create a symbol to unify us all, like the rainbow for the LGBTQ. It doesn't matter if you're Mexican, Cuban, Colombian. We are all Latinos, and we have to be Latino unity and Latino pride, and having a platform to showcase the incredible contributions of Latinos, elevating us all, thinking that we are stars, positive contributors to the country. America is made of stars, and Hispanics were one of them. So it's not that we have not been contributing. It's just like we just have a huge cloud in front of us covering us. So Hispanic Star is an invitation for everyone to help us remove that cloud so that we're seen as what we are, contributors, positive, shining, and up there in the sky where we have the right to dream big, not only small. So we took the insight that we Hispanics were like a 200% of a person, 100% Latino, 100% American, or even 300% of a person if you add your own country of origin and so on. We're able to embody that. And we took the star from the American flag, the virgulillo or ñ from Espanol and Portuguese, and we put it together so that we can have like a visual symbol that gives us pride and gives us unity. And so we're working with more than 250 companies and 100 Latino organizations and leaders to just have a single dream, to be seen, heard, and valued as what we are, stars, positive contributors to the country. So that's pretty much what Hispanic Star is. We have a number of instruments that are allowing us to generate the change that we want to see, but it is a little casita to generate that change and make it easy for people to access that change.
One of the things that I found that actually unite us is now that there used to be the term Latin or Hispanic. And for some people, it was considered a bad word being called a Latin or a bad word being called Hispanic. And now it's the Latinx community, which I
I
think
have,
it's the only thing that unites us.
no, I actually have a look. I I respect everyone's opinion about that. I think that labels are distracting. And if you start looking at it, like Hispanic come from, like España, Spain, or
Hispanic
Espanol,
is any
Latin,
country that
Latin,
eats.
geographic, Latinx, gender neutral. In reality, all of that is a label that is distracting. What really we should be focusing on is on the meaning that we want to give to that word, so that when people think either like only 3% of Hispanics even know that there's such a labeling difference. No one cares. As long as you pay us well and respect us, it's good. Like whatever you feel attracted to, fine, go for it. I think that it is an absolute fine thing. But what I really think that we have to do is make sure that we're associated with what we are, which is progress. We're associated with positive. So it's not about the label as much as the meaning we want to give to it. The meaning that, like there's a void in our perception. There's a void in our, like in our essence, which is we have to feel proud of being progress oriented, that we're like moving forward, that we're like echados pa'lante, that our spirit actually is like influencing everything. Because if I look at the data, Gladys, the real thing that unify us is not language, is not food, is not culture. Of course, those are values that unify us. But the real thing that a lot of the people have in common, regardless of your country of origin or your first, second generation or so on, is our desire to move forward, to progress. Is the fact that we're all, that's why we rise above so easily. That's why we're the most, like the most resilient of all communities, because we all want to move forward. We very rarely look at the rear mirror. But the problem is that the higher we go in that progress, the lonelier it gets, the more barriers we face, the least family and friends support we have. And that's why it's imperative to unify and to share, like to open the door for each other, share the access code with each other, mentor each other, support each other, not about groups, but as a community, all of us. Imagine what could happen if 62 million people were supporting each other, buying from each other, mentoring each other. We would just like be in the highest positions in doing like fulfilling the wildest dreams of our ancestors of never being treated as second-class citizens and so on.
But you know why I found with all the studies that I've done, especially with women, with Hispanic women, is that our culture, we think that until we are really ready to move forward, we won't do it. And that is part of the thing, that our culture feels that we don't know everything, so we are not moving ahead. So with education, we can totally make it. If a man decides to run for office, he doesn't think that he doesn't know some of the things that he needs to know, and he just goes for it. When a woman decides to run for office, there's a whole checklist. Do I have this? Do I have this? Do I have this? Before they even commit. So this is the big difference. And this is what together we can push everyone to just do it.
Absolutely, together we shine.
Correct. So tell me what's happening in the United Nations. What's going to happen soon?
Every year, and mind you, Gladys, I mean, like, I just want to acknowledge that I am an optimist of the change that we're about to see. It's happening. We've never been so ready. We've never been so strong. But it's thanks to the leaders like yourself and the effort of our ancestors, the people that have brought us to be so ready to really be about to be the last generation of Hispanics that has not been fully recognized and has not had access to full opportunities. That we're about to see history happen in front of our eyes. And so at the United Nations, as a newcomer organization like World Human, we started 4 years ago. Hispanic Star is a year and a half old. And what we do is bring 300 leaders together from allies, like 30% allies, 70% Latinos, just to agree on what is our shared agenda and how do we do it and who's doing what, so that we can coordinate and elevate our perception and our representation, so that we can get better health, better education, better jobs, and better gender equality. And so in that sense, what happens at the United Nations is a discussion. It's a discussion of leaders, very action-oriented, about how do we actually move our agenda of progress. And that is something that I really think that gives us a lot of hope to understand how to move forward and bring our energies together.
And more opportunities. So I hear that you're thinking you're going to do after the conference, you're looking to do the Met. You want to compete with the Met Gala and turn it into something. So,
well, it is, like Gladys, I've been doing this for 25 years and nothing really scares me. I'm a big girl, and my specialty was war and disaster zone. So I'm not very scared. Like, I'm not scared easily, but I'm scared of the gala. So I've never done a gala in my life. It's called it's the World Human Gala. The organization that I lead is called World Human, but it's devoted to Hispanic stars to make sure that we get support for Hispanics to have a comeback, a strong comeback. Particularly after this pandemic. Is happening on the 8th of December in New York at the Ángel Orendain Foundation. I do have a dream of making it like like the Met Gala for Latinos, because I really think that we have to change the narrative and the perception as well. Like we want to make sure that people see us and want to come to an event to see our designers, to see our fashion, to see our like celebrities, to see our, like our corporate leaders, and to support each other in a way that is like elevated the way we have. We have all these people, we just don't know enough about them. So it's providing visibility. So this year is not good. I don't know. I hope that I can count on the support of people to come, including yourself, Gladys. But I think that ideally the vision, I think, is to make it something like the Gala for Latinos.
And you're also
Like the Met Gala for Latinos, yeah.
And you're also thinking of coming to Miami for that.
Well, all the time, Miami is such an important area. And what we're going to be doing is, Gladys, the Hispanic Leadership Summit, I think that what we're trying to do is providing the platform for people to be able to coordinate with a very unified focus about like solutions, coordinated solutions and unification about like what is the collective action that we can take. Everybody's doing individual efforts that are fantastic. What about we coordinate, we create those, we create the platform to create an opportunity for collective action so that we can get systemic change. And so we're, as a fact, we're starting with the United Nations in December in New York, and then going across the country in regional summits. We want to go to Miami. We want to go to Miami in May. To start looking at, like to coincide with the International Nurse Day, and be able to talk about like, like the areas that are pertinent to, there's a lot of industry and health in Miami, and bring the leaders of Miami, of the region, not only of Miami, of the region, to try to see the how do we do it? Now we know the agenda. Now, how do we do it? Who wants to do what? Who is doing that already that needs to be connected with someone else? And what are the things that we need to scale up? And if they're not scaling up, what is needed? Do we need more policy? Do we need more funding? Do we need more socializing? What are the areas that, like we need to do so that we can advance the agenda, not only at the philosophical level, but also at the action level? What is the action plan and how are we going to get it done?
No, that would be amazing, because after the census, we are now a bigger community. We are now not the minority, but the majority, and we even grew. This was I don't have the statistics with me, but Florida was one of the few states that grew in population.
Yeah.
So we now have more seats available.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, like I get very inspired by other communities. And one of the, like other communities throughout history, not only now, throughout history. So I read a lot about that, and I try to actually get lessons learned. And every time, Gladys, if I could summarize it, starts with a small group of people that share a dream, and then go and get support from, like people to bring resources, hearts, minds, and whatever it is so that we can deliver it. In the case of the LGBTQ, having a symbol was very important, because before that there were a lot of LBT, and then people come together, got a symbol. And then also start looking at the resources, right? Like they went into a little island, and it was Peter Thiel and among others that brought people to St. Bart's and said, like, I'm fed up of having to be invisible. Who wants to put money here so that we can really increase the acceptance of our community? I think that it is time for us to start doing that and start bringing the resources and the, like Latinos of all walks of life to have a shared agenda about how do we actually change the way that we are, like our perception or representation in all walks of life, tackling the barriers, the structural barriers, but also looking into ways in which we can make this change happen fast.
I'm going to ask you the last question because our time is almost over. How do you market for social causes? Because a lot of people want to do good, they want to take action, they want to make a difference, but it's so hard to market.
Well,
and I know you have a marketing background, so
yeah, not only that, but I also teach marketing for social causes at the University of Geneva. If you look in Coursera, there's courses that I give the same way, Gladys. Like the answer is the same way that you would do it for any product. I mean, like, it is the same professionalism, the same data rigor about creating the understanding of the audience, meeting, like in my case, it's actually just like understanding what passions meet priorities so that we can tackle those issues as opposed to everything else. So the same way, I'm very data driven. So we don't do anything without understanding the data, very disciplined in the structure of actually what do you want to achieve by when, but who needs to actually do that so that we can get it. But the short answer is like with this, like the way to market social causes is the way to do marketing for any other product. So it does require for me, like an understanding of the matter, so that we can move forward. The one thing that I try to do with Hispanic Star and with World Human is try to help other non-for-profits market better, be presented better, and so on, provide the visibility, because we understand we're very marketing savvy in the organization. We've been, driven by that, but I think that's the part that we want to make sure that we bring that savviness to more Latino organizations so that we can all win and expand the pie.
That's amazing. The other part that I think that we need to concentrate is educating the people about the Hispanic culture. Because once you understand what the culture is all about, then you can move forward and and gain some respect
Yeah.
from
No,
the
I
others.
like we have very, very, very we're very laser focused on doing educational campaigns about the data. So we do what we call factivism campaigns. So we bring the data from the census and we break it down into pieces that are like infographics or videos, or we create PSAs and content. We incentivize companies to do it. We do ready to go material so that everybody can become a factivist. So in hispanicstar.org, we have toolkits of PowerPoint presentations ready to go, 10, 20, 30 minutes, so that you can talk to your boss, so that you can start a dinner conversation, so that people know. Because what happens is that if you don't know, you're in the dark, and the data gives you light. So we're trying to make sure that people understand, even Latinos, starting with Latinos, that we understand how powerful we are, so that we can start getting our voice back.
Claudia, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. Where do people find you?
Oh, thank you. Hispanicstar.org. That's actually, I think that the best way to communicate. We try to actually have everything there. I'm Claudia Roman Edelman. I'm on social media all the time. I live and breathe on LinkedIn and Instagram messaging and so on. And so thanks so much, Gladys, for the opportunity, for the platform. I really hope that we can do something in Miami where we can, like at the end of May, where we can bring everyone that needs to be there at the same table, bringing all parts to advance our community with a single goal. And I really personally hope that I can see you at the gala and at the Hispanic Leadership Summit here in New York.
Thank you so much. It was really an honor having you here. And everyone, thank you for listening. And above all, stay safe.
Thank you,
Have a
Gladys.
wonderful day.